All right. That's next in order.
There's in the foreground here, by the way, there's no question this is a black Jeep, right?
I believe that's the Jeep, yes.
Yeah. So now, and you know generally, because you were shown by Phillips where those coins were, can you point on that photograph 1034 and show us generally where those coins were recovered? Can you do that?
No, I think people have an objection. I don't mind.
Yeah, no, speaking of objection, can he look at? Can he answer my question first?
What's the objection?
The objection is that this photograph is misleading.
Overruled.
So, can he answer?
Overruled.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see any coins in here.
You see the, well, first of all, my question was this. Is that the general area where those photographs, where the coins were recovered, is that depicted in that photograph, sir? The general area?
Objection, that's vague.
Overruled.
The general area as to the north side of the vehicle are you referring to?
Yes, sir.
I believe so.
All right, it was recovered from the north side of the Jeep vehicle, is that right?
I believe so. I could check the property report and get an exact location.
Do you want to
for
do that? Why don't you do that for us?
If you would like me to.
Can you, if it's okay with the court? Yes.
Yes.
Certainly.
Have you uncovered the property report?
Yes.
And, may we read it, Your Honor? Now, I'd like you to read that to yourself and see whether or not, if you can read that, you can look at this photograph 1034 and see whether or not this is the general area depicted in this photograph 1034 where this dime and this penny was recovered.
Yes, it appears to be that general area.
All right, and what is your report? What does your fresh recollection indicate to you?
It- About what?
What does your refreshed recollection indicate to you about where the dime and penny were recovered?
Approximately 6 feet east of the west edge of the driveway and 3 feet north of the north wall.
And, Your Honor, that's 1034 I'm asking to put on the Elmo at this point. All right. And that area we've asked you, that's the general area where this dime and penny were recovered, right?
I believe so.
By the way, do you recall that on or about August 27th, 1994, that we saw you at the scene, that you were at the scene of the Bundy location and I was there with some other individuals? Do you recall that?
I believe that might have been the date, yes.
And do you recall that one of our investigators, Mr. Pavlik, pointed out some change that was inside the garage area on that particular day? Do you recall that?
Change?
Yes, pennies, dimes or something on the ground.
I recall a cigarette butt that he might have pointed out.
All
There
right,
may have been a penny, I don't recall.
Do you recall there may have been some change also pointed out?
There may have been a penny or something. I do specifically recall the cigarette butt.
All right, it had not been booked, isn't that correct?
The cigarette butt?
Yes.
No.
And the penny hadn't been booked either, if there was a penny there?
No.
Now, also, by the way, while we were inside the Bundy location on August 27, 1994, do you recall being pointed out to you a dark blue or black knit cap? Remember that?
Seems to me there was a cap up in one of the kids' rooms, yes.
Yes, it was outside one of the kids' rooms on one of the landings. Do you recall that?
It was, I believe it was in a box, yes.
Okay, if I were to show you a copy of the log, perhaps this will refresh your recollection regarding this. I'll show this to counsel for 1219. You have that. Counsel, I'd like to approach you. I'd like for you to refer to this particular report regarding the August 27th time that we were at Bundy. Read that to yourself, first of all, and see whether or not that refreshes your recollection.
Just the first paragraph?
Yes, first paragraph, I'm sorry. You read it?
Yes.
Does that refresh your recollection?
Yes.
That I asked you, along with a man by the name of John McNally, we inquired about a black ski cap in a box in the hallway. You recall that?
Yes.
And that was outside of the young lady's room, Sydney's room, isn't that correct?
Yes.
And by the way, was that black ski cap booked after we pointed it out to you?
No. I had no reason to book it.
But you did see it there, did you?
You pointed it out to me. Yes, I did.
All right. Now, with regard to a plastic heart, do you recall seeing a small plastic heart, item 288, somewhere recovered at the Bundy location, somewhere near the rear of the Bundy location?
Yes.
And, Your Honor, I'd like to mark this as our next exhibit, if we might. 1035. Where did you see this plastic heart, if you recall, sir?
It was somewhere in the vicinity of the vehicle, also in the driveway.
Was that near where this change was?
I think it may have been on the other side of the vehicle.
All right, it was somewhere back near the vehicle, though, but maybe it was on the south side of the vehicle?
Perhaps.
All right, I'm going to approach you and show you this plastic heart and ask you whether, as pictured here, this is a fair and accurate portrayal of the way this heart appeared, sir.
Yes, it appears to be.
All right. Now, when you saw that, when did you see it?
That would have been on the initial walkthrough.
Now, 'cause that was when Phillips was showing you what was taking place?
Yes,
Be on June 13th?
that's correct.
And did you have that item booked into evidence?
It was booked, yes.
And by the way, now you saw it on June 13th. Can you look in your reports and tell us what date was that item booked into evidence?
It was sometime after the 13th because I held this item out.
All right, I understand that. My question was, what date was that item booked into evidence?
I don't know.
Can you look at your reports and tell us?
I could go through them, several pages,
Could you do that for us?
certainly.
I'd like to show the item here.
All right.
This is 1035, heart found rear, south side. Okay, I'm sorry. It's item 288. 288. I thought I'd said that earlier. I'm sorry.
That item was booked on August 25th.
August 25th, 1994.
Yes.
Now, this is an item that had been recovered and seen by you on June 13th,
Yes,
not booked till August what?
25th.
By you, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, that would be contrary to the policy expressed again in your manual to book this evidence as soon as possible. Isn't that correct? Can you answer that yes or no, please?
Objection. If the witness needs to explain, he should.
Wait, no. Yes or no?
I don't believe I can answer that one way or the other because, again, the manual is a policy, but it's just a guide.
Well, I don't want to argue with you, but I would like to see if you can answer this question yes or no. I'll try to ask it again. An item,
Objection, Your Honor, you just said you couldn't.
I want to rephrase the question. Thank you, Your Honor. This item, booked as by you, number 288, our number 1035, was shown to you in the walkthrough by Phillips in the early morning hours of June 13th, 1994, correct?
Yes.
You were aware of it, pictures were taken of it. It was not booked until the latter part of August of 1994, is that correct?
That's correct.
Would you agree with me that that does not seem to be immediate booking? Would you agree with that initially?
It's not immediate booking, that's correct.
Does the property division of the Los Angeles Police Department that is downtown here in downtown Los Angeles, does it close or when at particular hours? There are certain hours when the property division is open for booking evidence?
Yes.
And if you recovered evidence in the middle of the night, so your testimony, there's no procedure by which an officer can book evidence that is recovered in the middle of the night when the property hours, irregular property hours?
The evidence control unit is closed. There is a property division downtown that is staffed 24 hours a day.
So if you wanted to book something, you could book it 24 hours a day?
Ostensibly, yes.
You get a DR number and you could then take it down and book it if you wanted to, isn't that right?
Yes.
This item was booked by you on what date, August what?
It was booked by Detective Payne on August 25th.
But Detective Payne works for you, does he not?
He works with me. He's assigned to this investigative effort, yes.
Now, turn our attention back to the Bundy scene. Do you recall at what time it was that the criminalists arrived at Bundy, from where I believe you told us they were at Rockingham?
What time they arrived at the Bundy location from Rockingham?
Yes, sir.
I believe I testified to approximately 10:10 a.m.
All right, and did you review that on the log at all? See whether or not that was accurate? You have it up there?
Yes.
And what does the log indicate?
Log indicates 10:15 a.m.
All right, and that's, so we're clear, that's when this lady whose name was Ratcliffe and followed by her associate, Mr. Jacopo, arrived shortly after her. Well, strike that. That's when Fung and Mazzola came over from the Rockingham location, right?
That's when they arrived at Bundy. That's correct.
All right, and by the time they got there, the two people from the coroner's office, Ratcliffe and Jacopo, had already been there, isn't that correct? They were already there?
They were still there, yes.
All right. And the bodies had not been moved at this point, is that correct?
I believe that process had started.
Have you ever seen a video of the sequence of events that took place that early morning hours vis-a-vis the arrival of the coroner's representatives and then the arrival of the criminalists from Rockingham?
I recall some video that's been played on on television several times, different pieces put together.
All right, have you ever seen that?
Yes.
All right, and the parts that you saw, do they refresh your recollection at all about whether or not the bodies had been moved by the time that Fung and Mazzola arrived at Bundy from Rockingham?
Again, I believe they were in the process of doing that at the time.
All right. And when you say in the process, were they both, with both the bodies still in place at that point, had not been actually moved, sir?
I believe Mr. Goldman was the... I'm not sure about the other victim. As far, it was pretty close as far as Fung's arrival time and to the time that the Simpson victim was put on the plastic sheet. It was pretty close around in that time, so I'm not exactly sure.
You're not exactly sure. Well, perhaps we can make that clear for you later. With regard to this Mr. Jacobo, J-A-C-O-B-O, Jacobo, he was attired or dressed in some kind of a blue jumpsuit that said coroner on the back. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And you noted that as he dealt with these bodies, you saw Mr. Jacopo and also Miss Ratcliffe with gloves on their hands. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And did you have some gloves on your hands at that time?
I believe so.
And you saw them handle both bodies in sequence. In fact, they handled the body of Miss Nicole Brown Simpson first, then they moved their attention to the body of Mr. Goldman. Isn't that correct, sir?
Yes.
And you noted at the time that Jacopo did not change his gloves after handling Mrs. Simpson's body when he then proceeded to handle Mr. Ron Goldman's body. Isn't that correct?
I noted at the time.
Yes. Did you notice that as you were standing there and watching them?
That he did not change his gloves?
Yeah. That he used the same gloves with regards to handling both bodies.
What's the objection? Sustained.
Well, did you note that? Did you see whether or not Mr. Jacobo changed gloves after he finished handling Miss Nicole Brown Simpson's body if she was the first body handled?
I don't recall saying that, no.
Did you participate in handling the bodies?
Once again, perhaps I might have assisted moving them. I don't have a specific recollection. I don't believe I did, but I can't rule that out because there was a lot going on and someone may have needed a little assistance on something. I just don't have a specific recollection.
Were you wearing gloves?
Once again, I believe I was.
Did you change gloves if you handled the first body, the Simpson body? Did you change gloves before you handled the Goldman body? It's not mistaken. If he remembers, Your Honor.
You can answer the question.
I don't recall handling the bodies. I don't recall if I had changed gloves at that location either.
Did you see or ever see that after Mr. Goldman's body was laying in a supine position, that one of the coroner's representatives had taken their gloves and dropped them on the body? Did you ever see that photograph?
I have seen that photograph,
And,
yes.
and I'd like to bring this photograph up at this point and mark it as an exhibit. This will be the defendant's 1036, Your Honor. We'll have to try to print it, I think. Got the feet on this one, please. Now, you see those gloves on Mr. Goldman's body there?
Yes.
Do you remember seeing that scene on that particular date?
Again, I don't have a specific recollection of those gloves being like that.
You know that's Mr. Goldman's body, don't you?
Yes.
And you see that lady's feet standing on that sheet of plastic there?
Yes.
See her feet? Those are the feet of Miss Ratcliffe from the coroner's office, isn't that correct?
I believe so.
And you recognize those are shoes she was wearing that day?
I can't say I recognize the shoes, but I believe that to be her.
All right. And do you recall whose gloves those are that are Mr. Goldman's body?
I could only make an assumption that they belong to the coroner's investigator.
Objecting to.
I'm sorry, what was the objection? Sustained and shall be stricken.
Now, with regard to those gloves, do you know whose gloves those are?
No.
And you recall seeing that particular picture, what's depicted there?
Yes.
And when you saw that particular picture, think back for me, was Jacobo wearing gloves when he handled these two bodies?
I don't recall if he was or not.
All right. And do you recall at some point Ratcliffe was, in fact, wearing gloves when she was handling the two bodies?
I, again, would assume that.
Right.
I did check them for gloves, or make note of that.
At some point, did you see her take her gloves off and drop them on Mr. Goldman's body?
No.
Do you know what the coroner's procedure is with regard to taking gloves that apparently have some blood on them and placing them on the bodies of victims? You know what their policy is regarding that?
What the coroner's policy
Yes.
is regarding that? I don't even know if there is a policy regarding that.
When you saw these gloves placed on Mr. Goldman's body like that, did you say anything to Ms. Ratcliffe?
No objection, Your Honor.
Sustain. Sustain. It's facts. Assuming facts, not in evidence.
He said he saw it, Your Honor.
So you've seen the photo.
Well, no, well, thank you, Your Honor. Did you ever see, you've seen this photograph that's depicted there, right?
Yes.
All right, and is that a fair and accurate portrayal of the way that scene was that day?
It appears to be Mr. Goldman's body. I don't recall seeing the gloves.
On that particular day?
That's correct.
Who took that photograph?
I would imagine it's one of our photographers.
And didn't, Rokar?
It's probably Rokar.
And didn't you direct the photographs to be taken there at the scene that day?
In a general sense, certainly, yes.
And you were standing right there when the photographs were taken, weren't you?
Not necessarily. If, by way of explanation, when we have the bodies out like this, most of our photographers have been through this before, and they'll work also with the coroner's investigators, getting various views of various injuries on the bodies. I may or may not have directed this specific photograph. I was doing many other things.
So you don't recall?
I don't recall seeing those gloves.
But you know that's an LAPD photograph taken on June 13th, 1994, of Mr. Goldman's body with Ms. Ratcliffe standing right next to him, right?
I would say it is, yes.
Now, I may have asked you this. If I do, I apologize. Did you ever take this man Rokar, the photographer, inside the interior of the house, and other than that kitchen area? Did you ever take him upstairs and have him take any pictures of anything you saw inside that house?
Asked and answered.
Sustain.
I apologize in advance.
And I'll sustain the objection again.
All right, good. And I won't ask that. With regard to Rokar, he doesn't come out and just start taking pictures. He takes pictures under direction of the investigating officers, right?
As a general rule, yes.
Now, with regard to this Jeep that was at the rear of the vehicle, you testified yesterday that the Jeep had the passenger side door was partially ajar of the Jeep. Is that correct?
It was cracked open. It wasn't really ajar. It was cracked, but still not ajar, but slightly cracked open, I'd say.
All right. Did you have any pictures taken of that door so we can see how it actually looked?
I believe there were pictures taken of it.
Do you have one showing the door ajar or cracked open at all?
I know there's photographs of that side of the vehicle. I don't know if one shows it ajar.
All right, that's what I'm trying to find out. Is there such a photograph?
Well, I would have to look at the photographs.
Well, perhaps when we take our break, you can help us with that.
Certainly.
Now, speaking of cars being parked, at the Rockingham location yesterday, you talked about the Bronco being parked in a fashion that was askew, or whatever words you use. How would you describe the way the Bronco was parked when you first saw it?
The rear end of the vehicle appeared to be jetting out in the street more than the front end, and parked at an angle in towards the curb, facing northbound.
And yesterday, we saw a picture during the presentation by the prosecution. I'd like to see that picture again, Your Honor. I don't see John here.
You're looking for?
Yeah, we're looking for the one for the Bronco. Find it. The curb.
Counsel has all the photographs.
No, I understand. I'm just.
They're not on the work encumbrance.
I understand that we all have the same set of photos. I'm just wondering if somebody recalls what number in evidence it was.
Yes, this is in cross-examination also. Direct examination, right. 62E, but, do we have the ability to call that up? Picture, photograph is used? What? Is there a print of 62E?
It's on one of the posters.
We got a direct examination yesterday, Your Honor. I'm trying to see if we can find it.
It's on a board.
Okay, all right.
Madam Reporter, 3 o'clock? What's today? Well, that's right. I'm sorry. All right. All right, counsel, the court reporter reminds me that I promised to quit at 4 today, and so I have to take my break now. Need to take my recess at this point for the court reporters. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a 15-minute recess. Please remember my admonitions to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves. Don't form any opinions about the case. Don't conduct any deliberations. Don't allow anybody to communicate with you. Ask you to step back into the jury room. And we will stand in recess for 15 minutes. And Detective Lange, you may step down. Anything we need to discuss before we invite the jurors to rejoin us?
We wanted to show the video at this point.
Oh, yes, I forgot.
Can Detective Lange step out here?
Well, isn't he the one who's going to lay the foundation for this?
Well,
Shock value?
I'll have to say it. Save some time.
All right.
When it comes to a part where I don't necessarily want to show, I'll try to let Your Honor go and see if we can cut through that.
Well, we got color bars.
I don't want to show this to him. Yeah. You recognize that gentleman there?
Oh, yes. One on the left?
Yes. One with all that hair. You recognize those two? Oh, yeah. Is that Phillips and Rogers?
On the record here?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, here.
Why don't you use the microphone, Detective Lange? We're actually reflect we're viewing a videotape this time.
Now, you recognize that lady?
That's Ratcliffe on the left.
Coroner's lady?
Yes.
Would this be a time when you are telling me what you have here?
Yes,
That Phillips in the foreground?
yes.
What time would that be? Shortly after 9 o'clock that you arrived at 9:10?
I'd say so, yes.
Now, that sheet that's over the body, that's, that sheet that you're handling there, is that the body of Nicole Brown Simpson?
Yes,
And are you showing the back at that point to her?
I don't know if it's the back at that point or possibly, I don't know for sure what I'm doing there. It's hard to see.
But it's Nicole Brown Simpson's body, and you're talking to Ratcliffe, and you're over the body, and it's still in that fetal position, right?
Yes,
With the arrival of the county coroner's office at Jacobo,
yes,
that would be a few minutes after she came at 9:10,
yes,
about 9:20, 9:25 perhaps?
something like that.
What time would your estimate be there? This is now.
Perhaps 9:15.
Who's he talking to? Who's he logging in with? Is that Cummings? You know?
I don't know.
Is that Ratcliffe up in the back?
Yes,
Is that 873?
yes.
That's the Cobra on Simpson's Pike.
Yes.
You're talking to Lieutenant Rogers there?
Yes.
You remember what time that was approximately?
I have no idea.
Those are the front technicians in the rear of the vehicle?
Yes.
You know what time that was, do they?
No.
I'm not interested in this part. This part I don't. That, you know, that officer is the African-American officer who that today.
I recognize it. Sergeant Palmer.
That's Palmer?
Yes,
Sergeant Palmer?
yes,
Body's still there at this point?
yes.
All right, now that, you recognize that gentleman?
Yes, that's me.
What do you have in your hand?
Gloves.
What's your recollection?
No.
Body's still there at this point?
Yes.
Recognize each person's depicted here? You're just walking out. Who's that in that jacket? Who's in that light colored jacket?
Appeared to be the photographer.
Is that Rokar or somebody else?
I believe it's Rokar.
What's happening now? Is this one, is that the plastic you're talking about?
Yes,
This is regarding Ms. Simpson's body?
I believe so.
We'll move this, one.
You're on YouTube, I'd like to see the whole,
I think you have a copy of this whole thing. This is not, I'll show the parts that I want to show. You look at it all the time. First body moved was Ms. Simpson's body?
Yes,
We can go through this part, go through this part. Is that Rokar there, with the white hair?
yes.
We'll skip through this part. Lieutenant Rogers is giving it a few here. Who's that going through there now? Without barehanded. Is that fun?
Right to left?
Yeah, get back it up. You may have missed it. Yeah. That's you, is that right?
Yes.
Now who's that?
Fung.
Barehanded?
Appears to be.
Are you writing notes there?
Yes.
Some of the notes you have in that book there?
I believe so.
What time of day is it about now? This is Mr. Gordon's body. We can skip through the phone. What time of day is that?
It's probably about 10:40, 10:45 perhaps.
Okay.
Maybe later.
That's it, Your Honor. I think these are the witnesses who are now making statements. Could you tell on there, or use fresh recollection at all, that the liver temperature of Mr. Goldman was taken there? Do you have a recollection of that now at all?
I don't see that on there, but I believe that's where it was.
All right, is there an objection to this?
Yeah, we still have a problem with the time and the angle. We have a problem with depth perception. This is a telescopic lens. Obviously, there was no media allowed inside the crime scene tape. And the problem is with distortion, as well as the lack of foundation.
Now that goes to weight, not admissibility. Lay a foundation, run with the cameraman, to take contemporaneously, you know what time it was, you're on 9:10, between 9:10 and about 10:30. It's absolutely clear, pictures are clear, we want to show nothing objectionable, and I want to cut out anything even about moving bodies, because I don't think that's necessary. Okay, witness to lay that foundation to deal with bodies.
When do you intend on doing this?
This afternoon, if I can.
How do we do it without showing all the extraneous stuff and fast forwarding?
I can ask my experts about that and find out. Can we,
Why not?
may I check, please, Counsel?
No, may I make an objection, please, counsel? Under 356, I think that it all ought to be shown, instead of having portions cut out, so that the jury gets a more complete picture. It's still distorted. And under 352, even though, yes, there's a weight and admissibility issue, there comes a point after which it's simply misleading. And this...
What is misleading about the videotape?
Yeah, first of all, we have, as you noted, Your Honor, already, it's clips pasted together. It's also taken from an angle that completely leaves out the depth, and it's incomplete because you can't see where the people are standing or the surface on which they're standing. All that's going to happen is the jury is going to be misled into believing they're standing on bloody areas or contaminating evidence when they're really not, because the lack of depth in this photograph, because it is distorted, because it is done obviously from a distance with a zoom lens, misleads the jury completely. Under 352, you have a situation where the picture not only does not speak for itself, but speaks to a set of events that are very different from what the reality was. So you have a misperception created by the lack of depth shown, and you have clips pasted together that leave out significant events that is going to give a misimpression to the jury about what was going on there.
Your Honor, with regard to the people...
Excuse me, Mr. Cochran, let me just
Sure.
ask a few questions of counsel. The clips, you're right, the camera seems to move several times. It seems to be from different locations and/or zooms. And then obviously it's different in time, because there's a difference in where cars are parked. I mean, I can sense that. But what is actually depicted, my recollection of what was just shown to us is Mr. Cochran was concentrating on three specific times. The arrival of the coroner's personnel, he was concentrating on the removal of the body of Nicole Brown Simpson, and then the removal of the body or the moving of the body and removal of the Ronald Goldman.
And the people's point is multiple with respect to that, Your Honor. We've
Well,
already
no,
had-
let's just flesh out the clips, the 356 issue. You're saying that you object that it's just clips put together and you would want the whole videotape played under 356? That's one objection that you're making?
One objection I'm making is if the court deems this to be admissible despite people's other objections to it, that at least the entire clip be shown so that everything is placed in context.
Right,
That's,
that would make it the entire shot, not the entire clip.
yes.
Right. Is that available, the entire video?
Yes, and we show, you mean what you just saw there? Yeah, we can show you whatever we got. You want the interviews and everything?
No, I mean, I'm asking, is the videotape, is there a continuous videotape or does it just start and stop? Does the camera person start and stop the video?
This is the video that we have, Your Honor. It's not, this is not put together from something else that we have.
This is one source, you know, this is one source, it's not any montage. This is one source, one video, which you just see here.
Or is there anything left out or that's been edited?
No.
It's obviously been edited. because
Not
the court
edited
can
by
see
her,
it.
Your Honor. And that doesn't help us tell, obviously. She doesn't know what she's talking about, Your Honor. We have no objection. She wants to show the
Well,
entire thing.
counsel, when you videotape something, when you start and stop and you elect not to photograph something and to tape other things, that's editing.
Your Honor, how is that different from a photograph?
No, I'm just, counsel, I'm not hearing from you yet, Mr. Cochran. I'm just asking informational questions. What I want to hear from, I'm trying to figure out what the objections are at this point. All right, I accept the representation that is from one source, and that, let's assume that the camera person shot and then turned off and then shot some more and moved around different angles, that sort of thing. All right. So if I overrule your objection, you're saying we should watch the whole thing?
Yeah, if it's going to be shown, then it should all be shown.
Okay. Now, what's your objection?
Obviously not the interviews of the witnesses.
All right,
The other
then,
objection is that even if we do, the problem with the entire tape is that we have a distortion that is irremediable. The distortion occurs because whoever is shooting it from an obvious distance and doing it with a zoom lens. What that does is it deprives the view of depth. And so what you have is people looking like they're on top of each other, and they're not. It's a small space, but everybody is in a particular place, and it is very misleading to the jury, making it look as though there's a crowding effect that there wasn't. It also is misleading to the jury because it does not depict all of the areas that were free of blood where the people were standing. And so the jury is led to believe, based on what they see with this lack of depth, with this lens, that they are standing in blood that they're not standing in.
but let me ask you this then, Ms. Clark. How is the jury going to be misled when we have the overview photograph of the steps with Nicole Brown Simpson at the bottom of the steps, correct? And you can see that there are areas on the stairway that is not covered in blood. And we know the testimony from the officers, the first officers and Detective Lange, that they did in fact go up and down that stairway, being careful not to step on the bloody areas, correct?
The problem is that those photographs are not evident in this videotape. And this videotape, the way it's shot, because it is shot from a distance, makes it appear that you almost can't tell that there are steps from this videotape. But that photograph is not present in this videotape, and you can't see where these people are standing. So to put the photograph, it's impossible to put the photograph together with the videotape to allow the jury to understand that where they're standing is no blood.
Mr. Harris, how long is the tape in its entirety, its entire running time?
I believe it's about a total of 14, 15 minutes.
All right, Mr. Cochran, do you have enough time to see? What I'm going to need to do is sit down and watch this thing in its entirety and carefully evaluate. I've seen this once now.
Oh, sure, I have enough, Your Honor. The point, I'd like to, may I address this? Yeah?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Any photograph, Your Honor, there's a depth perception problem. They've talked about this even in their own photographs. The pictures they have up there of the blood spot and the nearest footprint, there's a depth perception problem. There's a depth perception problem with regard to how the Bronco is parked. It's always a problem. You don't hear us screaming and moaning about that. The question is, you can explain those things. It's not going to be perfect, but there's nothing better than a video. We didn't take this video. And if she wants to show the whole thing, it was through sensitivity that we didn't want to show the whole thing, because I didn't need to show the bodies being drug out of there and that sort of thing. So that's the part I wanted to cut out. I have absolutely no problem with Your Honor doing that. What I do believe is that we've been talking about this for a long time now, so if there's a level of frustration evident, it's because we've been showing this from the very beginning. It is admissible. What counsel is talking about goes to weight. It's her witness on the stand. He's perfectly capable of talking about this. You know the 3 or 4 areas I want to get into, and I think that we need to resolve this at some point. But I can proceed on with the cross-examination. I had hoped to, since he's on the stand, to do this toward the end of my examination today. As I said, I'm willing to cut out certain portions, but whatever Your Honor's pleasure is.
Mr. Cochran, I don't see that you're ready to go forward with this today, because to have to then fast forward for this stuff and look through it, it's going to be disjointed, and
Yes.
things will be presented to the jury that perhaps they ought not see. What I would suggest we do is allow the court to carefully review the tape, and over the evening you should prepare an excerpt of each critical scene that you wish to present.
Why don't we, that'll be fine, Your Honor. Why don't you review it? Now, you may disagree with what we come up with. How will we do that? Let's see. I can do that with the areas we've talked about.
All right, we've talked about 3 areas at this point.
Yes, and we can do that and look at those. Are there any others? I'll leave those in, and we can try to do that.
Well, if you recall, tomorrow morning, as I told you, we're going to start with the jury at 11 tomorrow. We have that other in-chambers conference at 10, so why don't we resolve this matter at, say, 9:30?
That's fine.
All right?
That'll be fine, Your Honor.
Okay.
We'll try to come with a pared-down version.
I'm sorry, Ms. Clark? Sure. Without report. All right, thank you, counsel.
I'll get you a copy for you.
If possible, I would like to see the tape in its entirety so I can take it home tonight and watch it.
Your Honor, this tape that we're watching is already a marked exhibit. It's exhibit number 2. It was played on January 23rd. We have another copy that we can take with us tonight, so you can have this one.
All right? It's my copy to begin with. Court's exhibit.
Do you have it already?
I'll take it home.
Yes, you have it with you.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right,
Would you
let's...
like a copy of the version we're now, with your permission, editing down for 9 also?
Well, I think our agreement is that tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, you'll file with the court and with the prosecution the excerpts that you intend on presenting. And I think that's will just make for a cleaner presentation in any event.
Fine, probably a great suggestion. Thank you.
Okay.
Well-
Your Honor, we'd like to request that the identity of the cameraman who shot this film, this footage.
Camera person.
Camera person,
We
who
have
shot
it.
this footage, be divulged to us for the purpose of calling him to the witness stand,
Or her.
possibly, or her.
You never know these days.
No, I don't, and it doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
That's why, it's just a word, Your Honor.
Well, I just think
Right?
you're trying to lure me into some problem here.
And we would like to have the
As a
the
matter
identity of the
as a
camera.
matter of discovery, I think they're entitled to know the source of the videotape.
Can counsel please tell us? They've got to know now.
Let me ask, Mr. Blazier, do you have the identity of the video photographer?
I do not personally, Your Honor. I'm not sure that we know that. These are clips that we got, and I'm not sure exactly what the source is. We'll tell them anything we know.
Would this magically appear on their doorstep?
Well, Ms. Clark, it hasn't been presented to the jury yet. Mr. Blazier, over the evening hours, would you make your best efforts to find out who this is? Because I think the prosecution is entitled during any redirect or possibly even calling that photographer as a witness in their case in chief to explain what it is that's there and what the timer means and all the other things. They're entitled to know who took these.
I'll try to track it down.
All right. That's something I'd like to have resolved by tomorrow morning at 9. All right, thank you, counsel. All right, let's resume with the jury, please.
Is there a, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Your Honor, if a time was given by which we get that information?
No, I indicated to you, I think you're entitled to know who the photographer is, and you're entitled to potentially interview that person and/or call that person as a witness in your case in chief. I agree. And I told Mr. Blazer to make his best efforts and have that information for me by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Oh, great, that's what I agree.
And I would assume we'll be able to find that out by tomorrow morning.
I didn't hear the deadline, that's what I was,
Yeah,
thank you, Your
okay.
Honor.
Well, sometimes I don't make myself clear. For our jury panel, Detective Tom Lange is still on the witness stand on cross-examination by Mr. Cochran. Detective Lange, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And you are again reminded you're still under oath. Mr. Cochran, you may continue.
Thank you very kindly, Your Honor. Your Honor, I'd like at this point to have placed on the Elmo a photograph which I believe is a duplicate of 62E. Counsel. And I'll also I'll ask the witness some questions about that. 62E. Now, can you see that on the on your monitor, Detective Lange?
Yes.
And with regard to Plaintiff's Exhibit 62E for identification, is that a photograph of the way this Bronco was parked that you said was kind of jutting out from the curb?
Yes.
And let's take a look also, as we're looking at 62E, let's look at Defendant's 1037.
All right, you're marking this next in order 1037, Mr. Cochran?
Yes, Your Honor, I'd ask this to be marked as Defendant's 1037, next in order. And is that a fair and accurate portrayal of how this vehicle was jutting out from the curb?
The depth perception isn't all there, but yes, that appears to be the way it was.
All right, now, when you were at the Rockingham location, you had an officer there or officers there who sought to secure this particular vehicle, isn't that correct?
I believe there were officers there to do that. I didn't speak with them.
And their job, however, was to try and, was one of the officers there Gonzalez and Ashton?
I believe
Those
those were
names?
the names, yes.
And their job was to try to make that vehicle secure until such time as it was to be towed away or impounded or whatever, is that correct?
Yes.
And I want to bring up and mark as defendants, we'll call this Defendant's 1038. Council's now seen that, Your Honor. There's no photographs. I don't have a photograph of this. This is D-1038. May we now show it, Your Honor?
All right, do we have the ability to print that?
We're going to see. All right, now, Detective Lange, do you see the Bronco there in the foreground?
Yes,
See a tow truck in the rear part of that photograph?
yes,
See that lady standing up close to the vehicle there?
yes.
When you had left Rockingham earlier that morning, the officers, Gonzalez and Ashton, were in charge of securing the Bronco and keeping people away from it, were they?
I left approximately 6:45 a.m. I'm not clear on whether or not they'd arrived at that time.
Well, at some point, you became aware that Phillips had called for them to come over and provide security at some point. Is that correct?
I don't recall if Phillips did that.
Do you know what time of day that vehicle was towed away ultimately on June 13th?
No.
Do you have any records that assist you in that?
I wasn't at the location. I suppose one could check the impound report.
One could do what?
One could check the impound report. I wasn't at the location, so I don't know.
Could one do that for us right now?
One could.
Okay, yes, I'll ask one to do that.
Is there going to be a hearsay objection on that?
I'd like to see first of all what it is he's going to use